Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'm going to have to look, isn't that terrible? Of Tuesday, March 5th. My name is Jim Lehan. To my left is my associate, Kevin Calcutt. To his left is our interim town administrator, Mr. Lindmark, and our executive administrator, Susan Jacobson. This meeting is being both audio and videotaped and is available through Norfolk Cable in accordance with Mass General Law. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Lindmark, would you read the agenda, sir?
Absolutely. We have a Verizon poll hearing for Lawrence Street on the first item. Town government study. We have Norfolk Municipal Employee Union grievance for a memorandum of understanding, and then Norfolk Municipal Employee Union grievance for Kathy Astley. Some action items to consider: approving the social media policy, approving and signing the public safety building and water project bond, appointing Sue Jacobson as a parking clerk through June 30th, 2019, appointing Alex Weisheet to the Conservation Commission, I hope I got that right, and appointing Fred LaBerge to the Conservation Commission. Also consider closing the town warrants. We have a report of warrants, update on budget, and the archive social initiative. And we have some minutes to approve at the end.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a poll hearing. Welcome, sir. Hello. There's a microphone there somewhere. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hello, check.
It's for the folks at home, not for loudspeakers here. Okay. Welcome.
How you doing?
We're doing okay. How about you?
Good, good.
Good.
So yeah, this is just two new poles on Lawrence Street. It looks like this is for the bridge reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just get your name for the record?
Oh yeah,
please?
sorry. Yeah, it's Richard Foreman.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. And I'm representing Verizon.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is just two new poles on Lawrence Street. It looks like this is for aerial to underground relocation during bridge construction. I tried to take a ride by the site on the way here to take a look at it before, but the bridge is, well, the road's already closed down. Yeah, they're in the public way. The first pole, pole 2S, is 198 feet off of Park Street, and then the new pole 9 is 318 feet off of Park Street.
Okay,
that's it.
we won't push you through any more torment. Thank you. Kevin, any comments or questions?
No.
I have none either. A motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It wasn't so painful.
Definitely not.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item that we'll do is the consideration for appointment.
Yes. Alex, welcome. You're welcome to come up, or you can grab a microphone and...
Evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Please sit down. We gotta be comfortable. Great, thanks.
Song and dance, but
we live here too.
but no, I really appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to come tonight to meet you all and introduce myself. My wife and I moved into town almost 2 years ago now.
Can you hold that mic? We're getting, yeah.
So my wife
Thank you.
Amanda and I moved into town about 2 years ago. We live over on Mirror Lake Ave with our 2-year-old daughter and our 3-year-old golden retriever. So we have our hands full, but no, we love the town, we love the community here, and I have a background in land use law. In the past few years, I've started doing municipal land use law. So, I was hoping that I could, bring my skill set to contribute to assisting with the Conservation Commission and, doing what I can to help, protect the important wetland resource areas in town and preserve and protect the conservation land in town as well. So I appreciate your consideration for the position.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thanks for volunteering. this town runs on the backs of volunteers. So we're very grateful for you stepping forward. And conservation, for some reason, is always very difficult because it's so niched and so unique that it's very hard to find people that can serve on that board. So from my perspective, thank you. Kevin?
No, absolutely, especially with your skill set and your background, I think
Yeah.
would be of great value to the board and the town as a whole. So thank you so much.
Do I have a motion?
I move to appoint Alex to the Conservation Commission for a term of 1, 3, 20?
I believe they're
25?
just 2 or 3.
Three,
I think it's a 3-year
Three?
term. 3-year term.
For a 3-year term.
Yep, for 3 years?
Absolutely.
All right. I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Most thanks. Welcome to Norfolk. Yeah, take good care of both that child and that golden retriever.
The next item is appointment for Fred LaBerge to the Conservation Commission.
I don't know Fred, but I do know, I did read the resume and seems to be well qualified for the board. And again, we need volunteers. Kevin, any comments or thoughts?
Not on my end either. Good.
A motion?
I move to appoint Fred LaBerge to a 3-year term on the Conservation Commission.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Wow, they can hold a meeting now.
they have a quorum.
They have a quorum. And thank you, Alex and Fred, thank you again very much for volunteering.
All right, next up on the agenda, since we switched a couple things around, you guys ready? Okay. Norfolk Municipal Employee Union grievance, do the memorandum of understanding first.
I'm requesting that we go into executive session, since this is a personnel matter.
You have that right. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I will second. Roll call vote.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye. We will now go into executive session for the purposes of a grievance. We will recommence into open session upon its conclusion. out of executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye. Motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're good. Welcome back. We are back in regular session. Mr. Calcutt, you had a question, sir.
I did. Scott, just before you head out, do you have any updates on the town administrator search process?
Sure. So the team met last Thursday and reviewed a bunch of new resumes, have selected 6 individuals, new individuals to come in and interview with the committee this Saturday. So we're having a interview fest all day Saturday with a bunch of candidates. Very excited about some of them. I think they meet the requirements that you guys are looking for. Haven't interviewed them yet, so we'll hopefully they'll do well on that. But I'm confident that we'll be putting a set of candidates in front of you.
Great.
So you've got a meeting scheduled.
Wednesday,
13th.
correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
The next order of business is Town Government Study Committee.
Mr. Smith, welcome, sir.
Sorry, guys. Anthony, sorry it took so long.
That would be of limited capacity, Jonathan.
You want to sit here? Yeah. Welcome. I've got it nice and warm for you.
How are you, Jonathan?
Good, how are you guys?
Hanging in there,
Thank
sir.
you.
David, welcome. David, excuse me. Anthony. Why am I calling you? I'm calling you your father's name. That's terrible.
That's all right. I've been called worse.
Okay, we have been meeting pretty regularly, about every 2 weeks for the past couple of months. And we're really getting up to speed on quite a few matters. Just to give you an idea before I go into our draft warrant article. Just to give you an idea, our next meeting's tomorrow night, March 6th. And to give you an idea of the agenda of what's going to be on that agenda, so you have an idea of what we're doing. The Senior Center has asked us to do a public forum at the Senior Center sometime in April. So we're hoping to hear back from them on dates. And
Great idea.
we're also going to have a table at the Community Volunteer Fair on the 31st. It's a matter of which one of us are going to staff the table, but we're going to try to reach out to people about our committee, but as well as trying to get people to volunteer for town committees in general. We're researching various issues such as recalls, term limits, reviewing advisory boards across the state, cleaning up our bylaws.
Can I ask a question, Jonathan? When you say
Yeah.
review the advisory board, are you thinking the difference between a FinCom and an advisory board?
Well, they're both the same thing under Mass General laws,
They have different jurisdictions.
but you can do that if you want to, and say that a FinCom would only be the board that does the initial motions on financial articles.
Correct.
And then the proponents of non-financial articles would get their first shot.
Right.
That's one of the things we're looking at. But
Okay.
we're also looking at some places elect their advisory or finance committee. Some are appointed, some are appointed by selectmen. Most are appointed by moderators. We're just getting basic information on that. On term limits, we've seen some communities have term limits for just major boards because they have trouble finding people for other boards to be on. So they do things about things like 3 terms, and then you have to sit out a year or 2, and then you can go back on that board, things like that. And also the relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. In other words, what power, the vision of powers and responsibilities, like how strong do you want between a town administrator and a town manager, for example.
So you're just looking at the comparison
just
between
looking-
those two roles?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the kind of stuff we'll be doing tomorrow night. We originally had 4 warrant articles that we were going to present to you this evening. We're down to 1.
What happened to the other 3?
Well, some of them have been combined. We've combined into one. One of them was for a sum of money to do a staffing review of the town.
Basically to see if certain departments are overstaffed, understaffed compared to our population, makeup, that kind of thing. These happen, towns do them from time to time. Easton did one, the town of Nantucket did one. The reason we didn't decide to bring that forward for this one is the cost of those was substantially more than our committee originally was looking at. We were looking in like a $10,000 to $15,000 range. The town of Easton's was $70,000. The town of Nantucket's came in at over $100,000.
Well, they have the money. So that
Yeah, and theirs was a very different kind of in-depth housing.
It's just
and all
2
that.
docking fees during the summer, so
Yeah.
that's cheap.
So that's why we decided we're going to be going over it with our committee again, and so we didn't really feel it was right to
Can I
bring
ask
that
just a
forward.
curious question on that? I mean, when you say looking at staffing, I mean, clearly you have to look at workflow and things of that nature. Was it based strictly on population? Was it based on workflow considerations?
Well,
One
considerations
way
of,
that-
and some considerations about whether there should be appointed or elected boards for certain types of activities.
But I was
think this
talking
is
about
what-
just staffing. I mean, staffing, I
So-
assume you mean the number of people in each department doing their jobs.
Right, and so like I guess one of the good examples, like land use, when we created the land use department to combine zoning and planning and all that kind of stuff, that's a type of consolidation that like a staffing study can look at and say, oh, why don't you could purely as an example, you could wrap the Board of Assessors into a land use, or the building department could be part of the land
Okay,
use.
I see where you're going.
That kind
Okay,
of thing, and
yeah.
then maybe you have one too many people at that point because you've consolidated so much, and that person can go to another department that is understaffed.
That makes sense.
No, we didn't really have any direct
They paid
intentions.
$100,000 to figure that out?
In the case of the
We didn't
Nantucket
think
one,
so.
Nantucket has a severe housing problem, and they cannot attract employees for their town because nobody can afford to live on the island, and nobody's going to be commuting the 2-hour ferry ride. So they have a very unique situation, and that's I'm kind of anticipating why theirs was so expensive. But just the fact that Easton's came back at 70,000. That means that this is a much bigger kind of study than we were originally thinking. I mean, I think the committee still thinks it's probably a pretty good idea, but we didn't want to rush it for this Springtown meeting or anything like that. Get a little bit more
Probably
information.
wait till we have a town administrator.
And that
And
was-
$70,000.
yeah, and that was the other thing, is that this would require a lot of hands-on direction from the town administrator. This is how our town is kind
Makes
of working,
sense.
so that might be something to approach in the future.
Okay, what we've done is we have one article now, and that's to amend the town's general bylaws to change all gender-specific pronouns to gender-neutral pronouns in a manner consistent. Then we give some examples. And one of them is Board of Selectmen changes to the Select Board, which has been done in many towns. It started in
Brookline
Western
did
Mass,
this,
and,
yeah.
yeah. Chairman changes to the chair or chairperson. He changes to he, she, his to his, hers, him to him, her. That's, and if you want to split that into 2 different articles, one for just the select board, or just have it all together.
I would say
As
All
one.
together.
All
yeah,
together.
absolutely.
All together? Okay.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
You'll get no disagreement from here.
Oh, okay, I
No.
just wasn't sure.
No, makes all the sense in the world.
Okay.
A
And
lot
I
of towns have done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for a little bit of background, over 30 cities and towns in Massachusetts have done that. Needham, Arlington, Newton, Brookline, Dedham. Attleboro is voting on it tonight to change their charter. And I actually got a lot of the language in this from theirs, because the he's to he, she, that kind of thing. I also did just a quick search through our bylaws. We actually, in certain areas, we have he/she or his/hers, that kind of thing. In other sections, we don't, and it's just all dominated by the male pronoun.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing some of this would bring a little consistency to it.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
So basically, we're a very active group right now, and I think we'll have some recommendations for the fall town meeting. Even if we were ready for some of these major things, we don't think it's proper to do it now with only a two-member board of selectmen, no town administrator. And it should be a complete board and a town administrator just had time to get up to speed before we do some of these things, because they're rather, could be rather serious
We thank you
matters.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Hey, you guys are doing great work. Hey, do we have that on the, you got it in there? Perfect. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thanks for all your hard work on this.
If I could just ask a quick question. I've heard a lot of the conversation has been centering around communication practices and ways that we
Correct.
can become more efficient.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the direction of some of those conversations and maybe some of the feedback?
Well, some of the feedback is, it looks like there's been an invisible hand, because we're seeing that minutes are getting up to date now, especially yours. We're also seeing that there's some initiatives going on right now for how you're going to do social interaction with the public and everything, and that's the kind of issues that have been coming up. Some of the other ones are about how people find out about town meetings or warrant articles, and sometimes I think there's a split on the committee between some of us old-timers and newbies, because the philosophy that I might have is you have to get in somebody's face with what's going on in town. That it's not something where you have to be motivated to look up something to find out. So I'd be in favor of going back to having advisory board recommendations, even though it costs money, to have them on paper to go to households in town, because that's the only way people say, oh yeah, that's really something, as opposed to a postcard that says, oh, by the way, there's going to be a meeting next week. If you want to know about it, you've got to go to this website, you got to do this and that.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin has brought a very fresh perspective to that type of communication, and I salute him for that, because there are generational gaps in terms of how
Yes.
people communicate, and has done some fine work, and you're going to talk about it a little bit tonight, and some of the ways that we can communicate, and I completely support it. It's great work and needed. But I also agree with you that there is a segment of our population in Norfolk that needs this.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. There's also a segment of the population in Norfolk that will never use this.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have to find ways to communicate to all of our citizens.
Right.
There are people who still read a newspaper on a Sunday and don't necessarily go on the internet. There are people that still watch cable TV and get their information that way. I agree with you. I would like to see the advisory board go back to the old system, not a postcard, where something is in their face, where they read it. Whether they read it or not, we can't control that process. But we give people the opportunity to see it in writing. Yes, it costs $3,000 or whatever it is.
It's only for the fall.
I'm sorry?
The postcards are only for fall town
I know. But I'd almost like to see it across the board, Sue. I mean,
I'm sure
and
they
I know
do it,
Kevin
we
is,
just
I
need
don't
to
mean to speak for you, but I know you're an advocate of communication.
just need
And
to increase the
I
budget.
just think we need to use every opportunity to
Agreed.
communicate, because there are people that do not go on Facebook.
Agreed.
There are people that do not go on the internet and look up town meetings and so on. And we've got a lot of those. We have a lot of everything. And we have to find ways to communicate to all segments of our population, not just one group or another group. It's everybody. So
And things grow.
this is a very, and I say this with all sincerity, this is a very fresh perspective, because we've not done this.
Absolutely.
And this is a good thing.
But you're right, it's only a component. It's one
But it's a
component of
piece.
a much larger initiative.
Absolutely. It's a piece of how we do it. And, cable shows are still good, and things of that nature. Conversation Corner that has gone on for, I hope the new town administrator continues that process. It's a good thing. So anything we can do to increase communication, all for it.
But yes, our public forum, most of the conversation was about communication.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that people don't, the advisory board meetings are all televised. And every component of our budget warrants, article, everything is discussed in detail in our advisory board meetings. And I would encourage people to watch those, and because it is the most informative component, I think, of how we approach our town meetings. And the advisory board does an excellent discussion. I favor advisory board over FinCom, personally, because their reach is broader, and it creates that dialogue. Whereas if it's a FinCom, they're dealing only with the budget, only with the financial considerations. And then, as you say, the proponent of whatever that other zoning or whatever it might be, it doesn't get the airing and the public hearing process that the advisory board provides. And so I like the advisory board system. More cumbersome, more time-consuming, but everything that goes on that town meeting warrant is vented through the advisory board. And I applaud that. That's, to me, open meetings, that's government at its best. And I would encourage people to watch those meetings, because all the budgets are in detail, warrant articles are in detail, the public hearings on warrant articles on the planning board, they're all televised. I know everybody doesn't watch Channel 41 or 42, but it is a good process, so. It's a better, because it's a dialogue. You don't get a dialogue on Facebook or newspapers or, even Conversation Corner. It's a one-way conversation, So, anyway, I applaud anything you can do to that. And again, I compliment my cohort here. He's made that a crusade of his, an appropriate crusade. That's not a good word. You've made it a mission to broaden our ability to communicate people, and I applaud that.
Thank you.
So, this is good. And I appreciate all the work you guys are doing.
We'll keep it up.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll have some articles for you in the fall.
hope so.
And
Yeah.
we'd like to have articles on these topics, even if the advisory board wants to throw us down in flames. We'd still like to at least have the topic come up.
You could you and I have both seen the advisory board overruled by town meeting, so,
Yes.
So be it. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And just the mailing of the warrant, it's just there. I'm sure if you came before the advisory board and said, we have a preference for mailing of the warrants, it's not a done deal, it's an if/or. They just voted a while back to have the ability to be able to send postcards. So it's certainly something that I think if your board feels strongly about and you came to the advisory board, they'd listen. They're great listeners.
Jonathan, thanks for all your work.
All right.
I appreciate it, and
Please pass the thanks along as well to the rest of the committee.
please do.
Okay, well,
Anthony,
Yeah,
not
that's
David?
great.
Thank you.
No problem.
we'll see him tomorrow night.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, thanks for waiting, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Great lead in to you, sir.
That was kind of a selfish segue there for myself to throw that in at the end, I'm not gonna lie.
I gave you a softball. You're good to go. You're up at bat.
So, quick background. Last summer, we started working on some initiatives as they pertain to community engagement. We wanted to make some strides to help maybe try to take advantage of some low-hanging fruit to be able to make some small changes that would have big impact in terms of getting communication and information out to the community. The first phase of that was we did some work with our website. We did some integration work with our town Facebook page. You gave it a little bit of a facelift. Put in some parameters and filters in there so that we fell better in line with open public record laws and whatnot, and open meeting laws. And we provided people a more updated and refaced hub to be able to get information about the town. We built an integration that had the videos of all of our town government meetings and put a tab right there on that Facebook page. We built integration from the website to the Facebook page. All of our town meetings are now automatically posted to the Facebook page as well. What we're presenting tonight is phase 2 of that initiative, something that we've been working on for the better part of 6 months now. I've been working very closely with Anthony and with Carol, with our IT department and with both town administrators that we've had over that span, to be able to come forward with this social media policy. What we were looking to do was to try to align and bring ourselves up to date on some of the requirements that are necessary to more effectively run this method of communication in a municipal environment. Within the policy, which Anthony will go over in a moment, we highlighted some of the ways that we can better communicate with the community and also be able to set some expectations with them about how we'll be communicating back with them. On top of that, there's also a component in partnering with a third-party service called Archive Social, which will assist us in being able to archive all of the communications that go on through this communication medium, allowing us to operate more in line with what the expectations are as it pertains to the law. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Anthony, who's really been spearheading a lot of the documentation, research, and presentation of some of these initiatives, and who can take us through some of the specifics.
So a lot of this has to do with public records and open meeting law. If we are going to be using social media, which I think is pretty said and done, that our residents are using social media and expect their town to be using social media, we have to completely comply with public records law. And everything that we post or gets posted onto our Facebook, and I'll say social media, but right now we're really talking about our Facebook page. Anything that gets posted to that has to be archived, has to be searchable, and is subject to public records law. Right now, I have zero ability to fulfill a public records request for social media. I could take a screenshot of something, but I have no guarantees that that's the original post. It doesn't come with any of the metadata that would be required. So I was actually contacted at one of my town clerk conferences by this company, Archive Social, and that's the name exactly describes what they do. They provide archiving for social media sites. They can hook into all the major ones, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that kind of thing. And they completely archive everything in real time that gets posted onto a social media site. They make it available for search and extraction to be able to comply with a public records request. Really, if the town is going to have any kind of social media presence, we have to have an archiving program. There really isn't a way around it. We can't rely on Facebook to do it for us. That's actually in violation of the public records law. So if we're going to be using any type of social media, we definitely need to have the Archive Social program running. But a component of that is if we are going to be communicating in an interactive way with residents, we need to have some sort of social media policy to clearly identify what's allowed on our sites, what isn't allowed on our sites, and that we have the right to be able to edit or remove posts. A lot of times people, it becomes a free speech issue if the town is censoring them or deleting them, comments and posts. As long as you have a clear policy about what's allowed, what's not allowed, and that you are reserving the right to be able to remove stuff, that is completely within our rights as the managers of our Facebook page. So that was kind of the reasoning behind starting to develop this social media policy. I looked at a bunch of surrounding towns, Franklin, Rentham, Foxborough, at what social media policies they have, took a lot of their language, kind of boiled it down to basically how Kevin, Carol, and I, and Ton had been talking about how we wanted to really be using our social media websites, and wrote the policy around that to kind of clearly state what, we're using this as a communications tool. It's for the benefit of our residents, but this is not the only communications method. We specifically mentioned in this policy that posts on social media are not acceptable for public meetings or anything like that. The general idea is that people can ask questions, simple questions. And right now we're kind of operating under the plan that me as the public records or the records access officer will be a quote-unquote kind of webmaster for our Facebook page to monitor it, to be able to respond to questions and direct people to the appropriate departments. We absolutely do not want to have debates or full-on conversations on our Facebook page. I've seen the Massachusetts, the community page, and how quickly those conversations go on a tangent that has very little to do with the original posts. That's not going to be allowed. The idea is that somebody can post a question. I can provide either an answer or direct them to the person in this building or one of the other departments that can give them an answer. It's really meant to be just a further information step as opposed to an actual discourse platform. Again, we really are not trying to have full-on conversations or debates on Facebook at all.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
at that point? The one part that I am still a little confused on, and I don't see in the policy, and I don't know how you actually deal with it. There's a difference between fact and opinion. So if a question is asked, hypothetically, whatever it might be, and let's say it's a question posed to this board, in something that we're working with, pick a topic, doesn't matter. We may have different levels of understanding of what that issue is. Who responds? How is it responded to? How do we distinguish between the differences in views that may exist on any issue? How do you deal with something that
So
may be in that
it would
nature?
be, it would be.
And I'm
me-
not thinking of anything specific that in
Yep.
my mind, but I
a good
can see
question.
that event happening.
It would be me responding, and basically I would take kind of similar to what I do with a public records request now, and I take the question, I try to figure out what are they actually asking, and I would communicate with the appropriate board, department, whatever, for an answer that is appropriate for Facebook. Specifically with like Board of Selectmen, I mean, because you're a board that has a lot of power but has varying opinions, and if you haven't decided on something, I can't say that the Board of Selectmen supports this, is opposed to this, or anything. You're gonna have to come to the meetings to find out. But I can, the idea would be that I'd be able to correct incorrect information, provide actual facts or information that the town, this is actually what's going on. This is rumor, gossip, and innuendo that goes on Facebook. The idea is that I'd be able to kind of put a little stop to that. No, this is actually, try to boil it down to a very simple answer that can at least hopefully answer the question or provide a little bit more information to the person. And then again, direct them to a department or, hey, the Board of Selectmen is holding a meeting on this date about that topic.
Okay.
Show up. I mean,
Let me give you an example, because I don't know how you answer it. It's a tough one. Hypothetically, let's, I mean, you're talking about Lawrence Street, but that was a bad one. Let's talk, someone asked a question, I hear rumors about something that's going on with the Southwood property, because there are constantly rumors about what's going on with the old Southwood property. So they send that question to you. Where do you go to get that answer? Because you could go to the planning board, you could go to the zoning board, you could go to this board, you could go to the planner. That's probably the extent, or you might go to the town administrator. I mean, you could go to 4 or 5 different locations to get an answer to that question. How do you discern that?
I would actually go to all of those people and find out.
Okay.
And because there might be something that isn't before the board. You would have zero idea of what the planning department's actually doing. I would go around and find out what is an answer. And then,
Okay.
again, I don't want to feed into rumors or anything like that. So if there's nothing that's actually public, that's
Yeah,
not
because
something.
I mean, that's a good one actually to think about, because, there have been some preliminary conversations with various individuals in town regarding Southwood, but there've been no board discussions. So there's no decisions, there's no, no board can
Yep.
say, well, this is what's happening, because no board knows.
And
But
that
there
would
have
actually
been
be
preliminary
the answer.
discussions that most certainly, I'm sure, get shared somewhere. I mean, that's the way it is in a small town.
And so that would be the answer. So in that case, I've checked with the Board of Selectmen, Planning and Zoning. They currently have nothing before them. This is, I don't know where you
So
heard
the
that.
answer would be factual in the
Yes.
sense that there is nothing before any board at this point
Yep.
in time. And you wouldn't get into the hypotheticals, well, there had been some
No.
preliminary, okay.
No. I'm not here to editorialize or expand upon anything because again, we all know what direction that can go in quickly.
And in the event that we get into a situation where there is an aspect of opinion introduced to the inquiry, I think that we've all agreed that the fallback is to direct people to a better suited point of contact via another method, whether it be, this is the town administrator's email and phone number. If you'd like to get any more information, feel free to contact them directly. That's kind of the fallback there to help direct people to the best point of contact for further engagement past the initial answer that we're going to provide on the page.
I remember one incident, and this is why I bring it up, unfortunately it ended up the right way, where someone posted something on the community page that was before the Board of Selectmen, and this is a while back, and I responded to that question factually with what was before the board. The very same time that I was responding, Mr. Hathaway was responding almost, I mean, literally within minutes of when I responded. Now, the good news is we gave the exact same response. There's the good news. But, you know, what would happen if we had a different understanding of that? And so that was a watch out to me to never do that again, you know, to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of one of us responding to something that is before our board. And I want to be sure that we don't fall into that. That's my point. I mean.
And that's another kind of nice thing about the way we're setting
But
this
if you're
up, is
coordinating that, if it all goes
I would
through
be
you,
the central
that
coordinator.
takes it off the table.
Exactly.
And it helps to take a lot of the pressure off of you guys as elected officials and as.
Well, we want to get the right information out. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, there's enough fiction floating around on social media that, you know, fact would be a pleasant change.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's great.
So just to quickly summarize what's actually going to be changing from, you know, a resident's perspective. The first thing is going to be, we're going to be filtering all direct questions directed to an elected official that represents a department to the town Facebook page, right? So that's where all of that'll be filtered to. We're going to be asking, because we can't tell, but we'll be asking nicely, town officials not to respond directly on other pages outside of those that are covered by our archive social program.
How about a direct email?
Direct email, different story.
Okay.
This is more centered around social media as a
Okay.
whole. Second, right now there is a filter in place on the town Facebook page that is intended to restrict commenting. That will be lifted. Now that we are archiving everything automatically through our third-party service, we no longer need to have that restriction in place. Now, obviously, within our social media policy, we outline what's appropriate to say within that forum.
Saw that.
And so we'll have to abide by what's listed there and the recourses for things that are inappropriate. But that will be opened up for people to be able to comment on items that we have on that page.
And you will be policing it based on what's in this policy?
Anthony will be the one who will be monitoring that
Okay.
page, absolutely. Third, from an archive social standpoint, it is not only the town page that'll be covered by this service, it is also all the departmental pages that exist around town. I'm not sure if everybody realizes it, but we have 6 external departmental pages that exist outside of the town page. And each of them have their own individual standard operating procedures and how they interact with the community in those pages. So we
well
actually
aware of
pulled
that.
in representatives from all of these departments who manage and administer these pages, and we got everybody on board with this singular policy. So this will be an overarching policy that will reach out to all of those pages and departments. But past this policy, if anybody wants to have engagement like we're talking about with the town page specifically, that's up to those departments individually. They're able to define exactly what that level of engagement is.
Okay. Todd, do you have any questions or concerns?
I do not.
I do not either. I think it's a great idea. I will make a motion to approve this policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And with gratitude.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Anthony. I know you've done a
And
lot for
would
this.
the minutes reflect that, please? Gratitude to Kevin and to Anthony for the development of this.
AKA David.
Thanks, guys.
Next item is approving and signing the public safety building and water project bond.
We've done that.
Nope,
We haven't voted it.
Haven't voted it.
right.
Right. Do I have a motion?
Oh, yes. Kevin's got a big one.
Or any well, we can make the motion.
I, the clerk of the planning board. This is why you can't do 2 at once.
You can, you just gotta remember which one you're on.
I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Norfolk, Massachusetts, certify at a meeting of the board held March 5th, 2019, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $8,815,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2019 bonds of the town dated March 15th, 2019 to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services LLC, at the price of $9,167,845.04 and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on March 15th of the years and in principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. That's the only 2 paragraphs I have to go through, right?
Mhm.
Thank God.
I will second. Any further discussion?
I don't think so.
This is all good news, actually. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is
Well
appointing
done.
Thanks.
Sue Jacobson as the parking clerk through June 30th, 2019.
You are a glutton for
I was
punishment.
gonna say, you sure?
Yeah.
Well-
You want to reconsider that?
There's, yeah. We realized that Marion was the parking clerk for many years, and this was probably something we should have done back on July 1. But I have had the pleasure of receiving many parking tickets, so we thought we should take care of this.
I don't have the courage to nominate you for that, so I'll leave that one to you.
I nominate the appointment of Sue Jacobson to parking clerk through June 30th, 2019. Whoa. Not through June 30th, is it?
Yes, and then on July 1, we do.
Got it.
We'll
Understood.
actually do it in our last meeting in June.
Okay.
It'll be added on to next year's
Second.
appointments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Next item is consider closing the town warrant.
Well, we can all, I know there's going to be at least one more warrant article that we haven't written up yet, so, but we can open it and add it on at a later date. So, do I have a motion?
I move to close the warrant.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's going fast. You want to,
I will move to approve the following warrant. It's I signed for the amount of $498,321.76.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
okay, next item, quick update on the budget. Went through some more numbers with regards to the revenues, adjusted some of the revenues up, prison mitigation money to reflect that we typically have gotten that in years past and expect it to be coming in again.
He's being kind. We Mr. Limerick and I had an extensive conversation over this budget this morning, so he's being very gracious.
So, adding the revenue in a little bit, looking at some of the expenses, healthcare, bringing that down another percentage point saves us another 25,000. There is still some tweaking that needs to be done with the budget, and I'll be reaching out to the department heads to finalize some of the numbers that they've provided to me. But right now, we're looking at about a $260,000 gap. That is not including any free cash at the moment.
As we look into this, this new number does reflect, we're in contract negotiations with both police and fire. We have made an offer to the fire, and this number does reflect our offer to the fire. They will know on Thursday whether they agree or not agree, but I think that's a pretty solid number. The police, we have not had a chance to, we've only received the initial meeting on that. We have another meeting, is it this week or next? I've forgotten which.
This week.
I don't anticipate that will be, I don't anticipate either of them will be difficult negotiations, but I think we're in the same framework for the police as well. So I don't expect any fire for sure, because we're further along. The police, I don't expect the budget will change, even if the contract is a few dollars more than we anticipate. There's enough wiggle room in the budget to accommodate that, so I don't think that number will change. King Philip seems pretty solid at 3%. Might be a shade less, but we're gonna hold it at 3 right
And the
now.
final numbers from the other towns.
We chatted with our counterparts briefly this morning from Plainville and Rentham. We look awfully good, by the way, compared to some of the issues they're dealing with. But that's not our problem.
Right.
And we will not air it here.
Sure.
But we think that number's pretty solid. We got great news on our health insurance. Hard to believe we're actually going down in cost, but that's a good thing. But whatever we saved in health insurance, we got nailed in Norfolk retirement, so all things come back to haunt us one way or the other. But I think, Kevin, this is a pretty good budget. Having done these for a long time, this is as close as we've been at this point in time, going into the advisory board session, without having put a dime of free cash into the budget yet at this point in time. We have about 400,000 in free cash. It would be nice if we didn't have to put any in there.
That's what I'm shooting for.
If we end up having to make sure that we can meet the needs of our departments, like, I don't wanna cut DPW, and I'm sure you don't either, you're intimate with that budget.
Yep.
And Bob has been very conservative in his budgets for many years, and he needs those funds to do
Yep.
his job, especially with the transition in personnel that he's got going on there.
Absolutely.
This does reflect a revision that we learned of today on the regional dispatch.
Yep.
We had,
Another
the
60,000.
original number we'd had, that number went up about $60,000 today. The error was apparently in retirement and health insurance. They didn't have hard numbers at the time, so that went up 60 grand. I think that's gonna, I'm trying to phrase this the right way. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about any overspending there. Maybe that's another way to say it.
Sure.
I think that's a healthy budget for regional dispatch. And they are pretty confident, April 1 operational. So that's looking good. The police are gonna start moving next week.
Yep.
Into the station, so that's looking good. So again, this is, Todd, you've done a great job. We've looked at our debt. You know, the police station goes on the books this year, police and fire go on the books this year, but we've got a good chunk of money coming off. So we're in good shape there. One of the better preliminary budgets I've seen in a good number of years, and I really want to publicly state that this has been the best year that we've had in negotiating a reasonable expense consideration for King Philip. I cannot remember a single time in my 15 years on this board, and 6 years on their board, that we ever had a budget that was this practical and this reasonable and this sustainable.
Right.
They did a great job. They really did a good job. Ingrid always does on our schools, but this is a record breaker for King Philip. I compliment the new superintendent and his staff. They
I was
really
gonna
did a
say,
nice.
do you feel it's attributed to the new superintendent?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
No question about it. They've made significant savings in special ed. Whether it's timing or not timing, it's irrelevant. Bottom line is all that matters. Who knows where the momentum may or may not have started. In my view, it's irrelevant. We care about the finished product. This is a good budget.
Yep.
Meets their needs. It's reasonable to the towns. It looks like one of the towns will be able to at least join us in that number. My compliments to them. He was a pleasure to deal with. Pleasure to deal with. Paul did a good job.
He did.
And that has always been a bone of contention for years with us, so.
It's refreshing.
Yep. That's it. This doesn't reflect, this reflects the governor's budget. I mean, usually we get a few bucks more, but it isn't gonna close the
It's
gap.
not gonna be too far off.
The House budget hasn't come out yet, and it doesn't have, it comes out at the late 9th hour, just
Right.
before we get done here, so, but it'll be minimal. Yeah, it's never been more than 10 or 15, 20 grand tops. So I don't anticipate anything else. Anything you can think of on that?
I think we've covered it all today.
So worst case scenario, I'm confident we can find the 61 grand. That's the easy part. It'd be nice if we could find the 200, but even if we had to put 200,000 in free cash, that'd be the lowest contribution we've made probably in the last 5 years.
Yep.
So that's good news. So, nice job.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Nothing to do with me. All about the department heads.
Yeah, nice job. I don't think there are any more surprises
I hope not.
that we know of.
All right, the next item are I don't know if you want to, Archive Social Initiative.
Oh, we
That
covered
was-
that. Oh, yeah.
okay,
We grouped
just
that
wanna make
together.
sure.
We're very efficient tonight.
And I'm just making sure, approve minutes?
Just an update quick on,
Oh.
I started to talk about a little bit in the police and fire, but the police station is just about done. I mean, we solved the HVAC system issue that we had. We had a big issue with the contractor. He frankly just wasn't doing his job. Subcontractor, let's be specific about that. I think Matt had close to a stroke over this one, but his persistence has paid off. But that, as of today, was resolved. So we expect to be getting all the permits and all of the sign-offs within the next couple of weeks. Police will be moving in the next week. They start training right after the 27th open house. Remind everybody again, there's an open house for both the regional dispatch and the police station on March 27th at 10 o'clock. So that should be a fun time. But we're in the home stretch. We are meeting on tomorrow. We're meeting tomorrow to sit down with the architect. We've got preliminary drawings now for the fire station. We have, I think, settled on the fact, sometimes when you get a chance to sort of reconsider, you get a better idea. And this is a better idea. We definitely are convinced, both financially and in terms of the project itself, that we really can't renovate what's there.
Right.
It's just a disaster. And that was our original hope, that we could do that. But it wasn't functional, having bays on both sides of the building. The insides, God knows what we'd find when we started getting into that. Because we know there's asbestos, we know that there's all kinds of problems. So we're gonna tear down and build. We've made that decision. We've brought the square footage down from about 18,000 down to the neighborhood of somewhere between 12 and 14,000. We're looking at a single-story building, at least at this point in time. Kind of finalize this tomorrow. The fire guys have been terrific in working through the plan and making sure that their needs are met. We've made lots of progress in the last 2 or 3 weeks in getting this finalized. We've got the costs down. We do have, there's no secret, we don't know what the number is yet, but we do know that we've had cost overruns on the police station. 2 primary reasons for that. One is the drawings. We had a lot of errors on the drawings that cost us quite a bit of money in terms of change orders. There's no way you can foresee that. You hire a professional architect to design the building. It happens. Whether it should or shouldn't is a moot point. It did. And we've paid a price for that, and we'll deal with that in due time. The other is the complexity of the project. This is the first police and regional dispatch center which is fully state-funded in a combined project that has been done in the state. And things that may not have been understood or thought through ended up costing us more money. For example, fire suppression systems. Fire suppression system for a police station is different than a fire suppression system for a regional dispatch center. 2 entirely different systems. Nobody knew that, nobody anticipated that. Redundancies like you wouldn't believe. We have generators supporting generators. All required and necessary, but nothing you would normally put into a police station. So we've had some cost overruns there. So we're working through the financials. There is money left. We haven't spent it all. Whether it meets the needs of what we want to build for the fire station remains to be seen. But we'll work that out and report back when we have final numbers. But we're moving on to stage 2 now. And I have to say that Matt has been incredible. I don't know that we would have gotten through this project without him. He has been just incredible. We owe him a great debt of gratitude.
Matt is fantastic to work with, yep.
Yeah, he's been incredible. He's the reason that place is opening. Because we ran into all kinds. I mean, we had to fire the, project manager. And Matt stepped in and filled a void, and it's been a very, very difficult project to manage. Very difficult project to manage. I don't think anyone will ever really fully appreciate the degree of complexity that this project has had.
Right.
But it is what it is. And with the state contract and specific timeframes in place, you couldn't stop. That's the part that I think folks may, I'm not sure I ever said it, but we could not step back. We had no choice because we were under a joint contract with the state and with their funding, with very specific timeframes. So we had to keep going. So we managed through a difficult situation, I think, as well as we could. But we got there because of Matt. That's been incredible.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Matt. From all of us, who will never appreciate all the hard work you put into this.
Okay. Under the minutes. Next item is approve the minutes.
These are for the Board of Selectmen, not Planning Board.
Correct, thank you.
Here we go.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes from September 18th for open and executive session, November 27th for open session, January 3rd for open session, January 8th for open session, January 29th for open session, and January 4th for open session.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And a debt of gratitude to you and Nancy, Sue, for getting
Yes,
us all up
thank
to
you.
date.
Thanks.
We know we got behind because of Marion's illness and departure, and you have both worked yeoman's work to get us up to date, so thank you.
Couldn't have done it without her. But it's great to be caught up.
Yes.
We agree.
Yes.
Todd, anything else?
I do not have anything else.
Sue?
Nope.
Sir?
Nothing else from mine tonight.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Have a good night. Be safe.
Next week.
I apologize. Are you still on? Well, we have the interview.